Mississippi Delta, still crying the same tears. From Emmett to Nolan, how many more years? Copper blood in these waters, Most High see us here. Peace be still, but the truth gonna appear. Emmett Till, young boy whistling in the store. White lies turned to lynch and dragged him from the door. Beaten, shot river, swallowed him whole. Open casket, mama showed the world his soul. Nolan Wills, 18, boat ride on the 4th. Only black in the circle, now they say he drowned for. Horn Island whispers, friends came back without him. Mississippi history, still hunting, still doubting. Same state, same pain, different name. Black boy lost in the Delta rain. When will it change? Lord, when will it change? Ancestors screaming, we never left this stage. 1955, Chicago boy down south for the summer breeze. Money, Mississippi, wrong place for a black team to breathe. Brian stole maybe a whistle, maybe just a smile. Jim Crow code broken, now they coming in the night. Wild Roy and Malone snatched him from his uncle's floor. Tortured that baby, round, body in the Tallahatchie roar. Mutilated face, mama said let the world see. Acquitted by all white jury, not guilty, set him free. Sparked the movement, Montgomery rose from the flames. But the Delta dirt still holding black boys' names. Emmett was 14, just a child in his prime, lynched for existing in a twisted mind. Emmett Till, Nolan Wells, Delta shadows ringing bells. Black life cheap in these haunted lands. Most High coming with justice in his hands. 2026 July 4th, independence gone wrong. Broke the Horn Island with the crew, singing freedom songs. 18 years young, big heart, only copper in the mix. Friends white as the judge that let killers walking. 55 disappeared that day, body found on the shore 2 nights later. They say drowning, no foul play, but the family know better. Questions swimming deeper than the Gulf waters cold. Why leave your phone? Why the silence from the foe? Mississippi again, history echoing loud. Been crunk, calling for truth, independent, autopsy proud. Was it accident or the past rising from the mud? Black boy with white friends, trust issues in our blood.
Why the same soil claim my sons? Ancestor never left, we still the chosen one.
From Till's open casket to Nolan's unanswered call. In time signs, Leviathan rising, watch the fall. No hate, just black love, we hold each other tight. But stop crashing out on each other and demand what's right.
Peace be still,
Through the storm we prevail,
Father's child.
we shall not fail. Both in Mississippi, Delta's cruel embrace. One lynched open, one body lost without a trace. Emmett's killers brag after the verdict came. Nolan's story fog in speculation and shame. 14 or 18, young kings taken too soon. Waters claim the bodies, but the spirit touched the moon. Same fear, same doubt, same racist undercurrent flow. But we wiser now, cameras, voices won't let go. Indigenous copper, mountain builder stand tall. We walk together, ancestors answer the call. No more silent nights, no more cover graves. Justice for Emmett, justice for Nolan. Raise the blade.
Emmett Till, Nolan Wells.
Hell no,
Emmett Till, Nolan
but our spirit never failed.
Emmett Till.
We got black love revolution now. Most High know my heart, make it right somehow.
Peace be still,
Peace be still. From Till to West, story still real. Let the world see. Let the truth be free. Let the world see. Let the world see. Let the truth be free.
Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your Sunday morning wake up call. So, as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time Queen Goddess goes live. All right. Let's see who is up in here. All right, we have a new member. Hey, V Maltsby. Thank you for becoming a member, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. All right, Queen Amoni Huey is here. OG Snake Potter. All right, Snake Spotter. Okay, E. Worrell is here. LL, Veronica. Let's get into it. Marie. All right, Desmond, Dark Tube, Buckhorse DC, Charlene. All right, everybody hit that like button. KQB Fife is here. That crazy beach Airy. Pensilola. The infamous Marty Marr. All right. Big Chief All American is here. Where have you been? Darius is here. Okay, let's get it popping. New King 99 is here. So everybody hit that like button, double check to make sure you're still subscribed, especially if you have not been receiving those notifications. All right, Nalan G is here, Sharon. Okay, let's get into it. Gemini, I see you, beloved. Truth Brown. All right, we the people. Okay, so let's get it popping. Now, before we do, I see you, Bad Saint. Do we have any trolls in the building? Any trolls in the virtual building? Let the queen know so I can give you the proper greeting, trolls. I know y'all be hating. I know y'all be hating. Shout out to the trolls wherever you are. They're watching from the bushes. Pay attention. Okay, Bert Ward is here. Okay, let's get into it. Just guidance, D from the land. All right. Bronze Flat Power God is in the house. Okay, so before we get started, and without further ado, I see you, Nina. Let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. Here we go.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oils at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Craft. She has marvelous products, okay? Very good for your hair, especially if you're trying to keep it healthy. And don't forget that you can also find her products at Walmart.com, and she sells beard oil, okay? So now with that all being said, let's get ready to get into it. Let's get ready to get into it. Now, before we get started, let me just say, I want to clarify something on my previous commentary regarding the Nolan Wells case. So let's get into that first. So, in previous discussions, I have expressed my personal suspicion that certain individuals may know more about what happened than is publicly being disclosed. Okay, and I've also questioned whether information may have been withheld or concealed, alluding to a cover up. But I want to make something very clear here. Those statements represented my opinion, questions, and speculation based on my simple interpretation of the information provided that has been surrounding the case. Now, I don't have evidence establishing that any particular person per se has committed a crime nor participated in a cover up or knowingly concealed criminal activity. Okay, but going forward, let me just say that when I discuss this case, I will distinguish clearly between verified facts, statements made by any individuals involved, information reported by credible sources, and as well as my own opinions and theories. Okay, so please pay attention. And there are still some questions that I believe deserve answers, and I will continue asking those questions. But asking questions and examining inconsistencies is not the same as declaring that someone is guilty of wrongdoing. So unless and until evidence establishes otherwise, no one should interpret my commentary as factual. Before we get into this, I want to make that very clear, okay? So keep that in mind, beloveds. And also, I want to also make it clear that on this show, I discuss the facts that are publicly available. I ask my questions and all of that. Now, when I question things, that's just what I'm going to do because I have several questions. You all know that. So I don't know everything that happened, and I'm not claiming that I do. It's just my opinions, commentary, and not an accusations, or no accusations, shall I say, are factual. All right, so let's get it popping. And by the way, you all can look into these things yourselves and figure out what you believe and what you don't believe. And as always, draw your own conclusions. All right? Now, with that being said, let's get into it. Booker CC said, damn right. Okay, so anyway, I'm so glad you all are here. Y'all know I love my loyal royals. So now here is the thing. There is a very interesting update that has come out, and I find it all interesting because it looks like the story is changing. And I have several questions as to why. But we're going to get into it. But before we do, I want you all to see this Karen who was harassing this poor black man and his family as they were just enjoying their night out. Okay, so let's go to that first because these Karens are so nefarious. And for whatever reason, they seem to be obsessed and so preoccupied with people who look like me. Okay, that's what they tend to do, as if they don't have any business of their own. Please pay attention. And also, let me say to those of you who missed the broadcast that I did yesterday because it didn't have Nolan's name all in through it, listen, y'all need to be paying attention to other things. There's other things going on in the world that are just as important. And we're going to talk about some of those things on the backup channel maybe later on today, honey, because Trump is out here doing the most. And we all need to be paying attention because some of it is really, really scary. Okay, it really is. Now, if that all been said, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. And also, by the way, the video yesterday was about the strange fruit that keeps occurring. Okay, I have so many questions about these things and as to why and how they continue to get away with telling us there's nothing to see here, folks, when someone is strung up in a tree like 20 feet off of the ground or strung up so high that the fire department had to come to get them down. Now, how did they get up there if they did it themselves? I have questions. Okay, now let's get into this. Everyone, please like and share. Thank you.
This means you do not live.
Hey, she's going viral, y'all.
Good.
This is what happened when black people live in a good neighborhood.
Do you hear this?
When black people live in a good neighborhood, this is what happened. They call 911 on you. Yeah,
And I'm
I got 4 kids with me. I have a 1-year-old, I have a 3-year-old. Excuse me, ma'am. You're being recorded. You're lying? What? But watch this, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. I want you to see this real quick. Okay, we're good. Look at this. Watch this. All my kids is all by her. This about to be a million views quick. Sit down. Lay down. It's a service dog, ma'am.
Doesn't matter. Dogs.
Sit down. Sit down.
What's your address? You come every night at 8:30, and you are not required to be here. Go ahead,
I live here, ma'am.
No, you don't. What's your address?
I don't have to give it to you.
Yes,
Sit down.
you do.
Lay down. Sit down. Lay down.
I'm calling the police.
Go ahead. Call him, please. Come here.
Yes, you don't live here. We followed you. We know you don't live here.
It don't matter where you follow me to.
It doesn't matter. You do not live in this
Okay, please don't walk up to us.
This is a
Come here,
private
Scott.
residence.
We live here. You don't have to walk up. But the most important part is when she said I hit her. She said I assaulted her. This is proof right here, letting you see everything. Police on me right now. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what this lady is doing right now. But yes, I'm right. I'm waiting on the police, ma'am, because this is discrimination. This is racism.
Guess what? You know what racism means? You do
Look
not
at this,
live.
y'all. Hey, she's going viral, y'all.
Good.
This is what happened when
Good.
black people
Look.
live in a good neighborhood.
Do you hear this?
When black people live in a good neighborhood, this is what happened. They call 911 on you. Yeah,
And I'm
I got
acting
4
crazy.
kids with me. I have a 1-year-old, I have a 3-year-old. Excuse me, ma'am. You're being recorded. You're lying? What?
I'm so done. Hey, Ashkan, beloved, we the people, Godspeed is here. Listen, get you all to pay attention because here's the thing. That was clearly a Karen. And these Karens always have a similar look about themselves. These Karens are never beautiful, well-dressed, intellectual individuals. Do you all notice that? I'm not going to say what they actually look like in general, but for the most part, she absolutely looked like the Wicked Witch of the West, if you ask me. But here's the thing, though. He said this is what happens when you live in a good neighborhood. My question is, why would you, I guess some black people do this. Why would you subject yourself to living in a neighborhood where you even have to deal with that? I would never want to live amongst racist MAGA type millions, i.e., Confederates who do not like the people who wear the skin that I am in, honey. And I live in a very nice neighborhood, and I'm surrounded by people who look like me. Now, there are some white folk who moved in because they wanted to try to gentrify, but we're not letting that fly. So that being said, they live not far from here, like around the corner or whatnot. But here's the thing. I feel more comfortable around my own people. And I feel like a lot of black people tend to think foolishly, in my opinion, that when they get a few dollars or they come up, they want to move on up like the Jeffersons, okay, like George and Weezy, they feel like they need to move among the Karens. And I think that's obtuse because these people don't even like you. Okay, they don't even like you. So why do you want to be around them? Like, make it make sense. Okay, make it make sense. That's why I say I would never, honey. I live around my own people. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm not going to live in the hood. That's what the queen's not going to do. I'm not going to live in the hood, okay? Because I don't trust the hood Negroes. That's what I don't do. That's where you see people out there in the corner selling illegal substances, out there looking for mischief to get into. Now, I don't want to hang around those folk. I don't want to hang around the hood because I just don't think that's a good place to be. And that's not the fault of the people in the hood. Okay, that's just something that the government did. They took away resources and different things from some of our neighborhoods and made them be downtrodden or whatever. And because of the lack of resources within those communities, the people often tend to engage in criminal activity as their means of survival. Now, I'm not making excuses for them. That's what they do. I'm just saying I don't want to be around that. But however, there are nice, upstanding neighborhoods where Black people can live and thrive, and you don't have to worry about other people like Karen there being all up and through your business. See, that's how I've always lived. Okay, that's how I've always lived. When I was a child growing up, my mother and stepfather had good jobs. We always lived a middle class life. We weren't rich, but we lived nice, and we lived in a good neighborhood with good Black folk. The principal from my school in elementary lived across the street from us. We had doctors and lawyers in our neighborhood, nurses and nurse practitioners and things like that is all I'm saying. Now, you can find those type of neighborhoods, and back in the day, it was more so that those are the type of places where well-to-do Black people wanted to live. But now some of y'all think y'all all this and that and think you're too good for your own people. I think you need to go move in and live next to the Karens so they can come up to you and question you about who you are, where you're supposed to be, and telling you that you don't even look like you live around here. Then the HOA can come and harass you and just tell you about this, that, and the third. Honey, I don't have time for that. I like to live in peace. Okay, I don't want to be arguing with Karens every time I pull up or someone comes by my house. I don't need them being all up and through my business trying to figure out what I have going on. Okay, I don't have time for it. And I just don't understand for the life of me why some of our people do. I know why people like Brandon Tatum and Jason Whitlock, I understand why those type of people might be down for that. But unless you're one of those raccoons, I don't see why you'd want to be bothered or live close or anywhere in the surrounding areas and vicinity of a whole Karen. Okay, the males or the females. Okay, because they got Karens that are male too. Please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, V Malsby just gifted 5 memberships to the channel. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, you all be sure to shout out V Malsby for being so kind and considerate. Okay, specifically those of you who get memberships. All right. Now, let's get into the nefarious details of what's going on here. So here is the thing. Now, you all may remember that I had several questions, as per usual, as to why they didn't want to tell us who the ranger was that found Nolan Wells. That person had never been named. Okay, that person had never been named. And let's just Google it real quick, just to show my point. I think I've done this before. Clearly I have because it popped right up. So I've already, hold on. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. So I always thought it was interesting. I did a whole TikTok about that. In the broadcast, I talked about it as well. Okay, so let's go to this. Now, this is a response from Google, but now all of a sudden the story is changing. Okay, that's the shocking update. Now we're going to talk about it because it's real crazy. Okay, the specific name of the individual U.S. Park Ranger who discovered the body of 18-year-old Nolan Xavier Wells on Horn Island on July the 6th of 2026 has not been publicly released by authorities. Oh, really? Public reports from local law enforcement news outlets refer to the discoverer only as U.S. National Park Service Ranger. Okay, y'all saw that, right? And they give you the reference right here. This is WLOX, who's been reporting on this story from day one, and that's where you can find the verification of what they say. Now, here's the whole thing. Now they have come out, at least a certain publication has. They have come out, and let's just get into what they're now saying. Let's get into what they're now saying. Now, this is supposedly from an ex-FBI agent. Now, first, when I heard it, I said, okay, well, maybe she doesn't know what she's talking about. Okay, so, hold on. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Okay, so a former FBI agent has raised questions about the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping case. Now, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie was reported missing from her home on February the 1st. According to authorities, she was taken the night before. You may be saying, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, what are you doing? We're talking about Nolan Wells. Why are you bringing up Nancy Guthrie? Well, let's just keep going. CDB just became a member. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, they go on to say that it has been 6 months, okay, and the octogenarian is yet to be found. Now, towards the start, there was chatter of the Cajun Navy possibly joining the search. However, News Nation reported that the Pima County Sheriff's Department, who are lead on the case, had a blanket rejection for outside help. Hence, the Cajun Navy did not aid in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Now, Cajun Navy is an informal, decentralized network of private boat owners and everyday volunteers. Now, they were instrumental in helping find Nolan Wells, the Mississippi teen who had gone missing on July the 4th. Now, with no breaks being announced to the public in the Nancy Guthrie case, well, ex-FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, that's a heck of a last name, Coffindaffer, okay, has questioned the decision to reject the Cajun Navy's help. So Coffindaffer wrote on an X post stating, the Cajun Navy helped find Nolan Wells. Too bad Sheriff Nanos wouldn't allow the United Cajun Navy to search for Nancy. She then alleged that there was no good reason for Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos to reject the Cajun Navy's help, saying name one good reason why Nanos didn't. Now, unless LE knows where she is at the search. Okay, so why couldn't they help? This is what the ex-FBI agent wanted to know. Okay, so I thought, nothing to see here. That was no big deal, right? Recently, private investigator Bill Garcia, speaking on a YouTube show, had echoed Coffindaffer's thoughts that there was no reason for the PCSD to reject the Cajun Navy's help unless they had some idea of where Nancy Guthrie might be located. Now, in the Nolan Wells case, the Cajun Navy, please pay attention. In the Nolan Wells case, the Cajun Navy found his body on July the 6th, 2 days after he went missing. And here's the latest developments in that matter, as the family has kept asking questions about the circumstances surrounding Nolan's demise. So, Wells, a black teenager, football, we're going to skip past all that, but I want you all to pay attention. What did they just say? They just said that in the Nolan Wells case, the Cajun Navy found his body on July the 6th. Sorry, I thought they said the Ranger found his body. I could have sworn that's what they said. I could have also sworn that Cajun Navy member Brian Trasher said that he was up 300 to 450 feet in the air, looking down, saw two boats side by side and saw the body, okay? Saw the body on the shore. Now, that being said, They go on to say Wells, a black teen football player, had gone out with his 3 white friends to Horn Island off the coast of Mississippi on July the 4th. He was reported missing on that day, and his body was found by the Cajun Navy on July the 6th. He had washed ashore on Horn Island. Okay, do y'all see a contradiction here? I find it all very interesting because they said it again. He was reported missing on that day, and his body was found by the Cajun Navy on July the 6th. See, here's the thing. When I first heard that, I thought that the ex-FBI agent got her facts wrong, that maybe she was just simply trying to say they aided in finding his body. But they're saying more than once in this information that the Cajun Navy, found his body. Now, previously, they have continued to say that it was the Ranger, who is anonymous. We don't know anything about him. So I just have questions as to why all of a sudden this story is changing. I have questions. Okay, now is the story perhaps changing because people have been asking and inquiring, who is this Ranger? Why hasn't this person come forward? And if you remember when I first pointed that out to you all, because you heard it here first, okay, I was the first one that noticed that. But when I told you all that, I said, you know, the Cajun Navy has come out and spoken. They've given us details, but where's the Ranger? Why isn't he being invited to do these interviews that the Cajun Navy, specifically Brian Trasher, continues to do? So questions about race have been raised in the matter, though authorities said at the start that they initially did not suspect foul play. The family conducted a private autopsy whose results were inconclusive. Now, the state autopsy results took longer as toxicology reports take time. However, they have now been finished as well. But the results that have not been disclosed to the public. The autopsy results will be presented to the grand jury directly, as agreed on by the state and Attorney Ben Crump, who is presenting or representing the Wells family interest. Okay, well, let's talk about something here. Let's talk about something here, because as I told you all, I have questions. Now let's go to a couple of previous articles. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Now, here's one that talks about the timeline and disappearance of 18-year-old Nolan Wells. So let's just go to the July 6th timeline. Let's go to that one and see what they said that happened that day. Because, you know, I want you all to pay attention. See, I always tell you all that I pay attention to the smallest of details because that's where the devil is. Okay? That's always where the devil is. Now, what's really going on here? And I told you all that I didn't trust the Cajun Navy anyway, specifically Brian Trasher. So United Cajun Navy aircraft took to the air just before 6 a.m. on Monday. Now, this is a report for July the 6th. Search boats were deployed again with the last vessels leaving just before 8 a.m. At 8:45 or around 8:45, Sheriff Ledbetter confirmed authorities received a call reporting a body found at the northwestern tip of Horn Island. The body was discovered by a U.S. Park Service Ranger. And that U.S. Park Service Ranger would not be working for the Cajun Navy because they don't really have rangers who work for them. I already checked. Now, Nolan's family was asked to come to the Lake Morris boat launch, where they were met by Sheriff Ledbetter and Coroner Bruce Lind. Just after 11 a.m., the body was taken to the coroner's office in Pascagoula. Just before 1 p.m., Nolan's family confirmed his death on social media. His mother posted on Facebook confirming that Nolan was the person found on Horn Island. Okay, so there is a source that absolutely concluded and said that it was a U.S. Park Service Ranger. Okay, now that being said, I just want you all to pay attention. Now, here's another one. Nolan Wells' body found face down and fully clothed on beach, searcher says. So as questions still swirl about the mysterious death of Mississippi college football player Nolan Wells, new details are emerging about how his body was discovered. Now, according to President of the United Cajun Navy, Todd Terrell, who helped conduct an aerial search for Wells, using a seaplane. The 18-year-old was discovered by a park ranger on the northwest end of Horn Island on July the 6th, 2 days after the teen had attended a 4th of July party with friends. Now, here is the president of the Cajun Navy giving the credits to the park ranger. If the Cajun Navy had found Nolan's body, don't you think they would have said so? And if not, then why? If not, then why? The president, Todd Terrell, said himself it was a park ranger. Now, let's not just stop there. Let's go to one more. Now, there's two different sources. Okay, two different sources. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Thank you in advance. Now, here we go. And this is from the Mississippi Free Press. And I don't even need to read this because all I have to do is show you the headline. That's all I have to do is show you the headline on this one. Self-explanatory. Ranger finds body amid search for Nolan Wells, who vanished on Horn Island during trip with friends. So there's three sources right there that I've shown. Absolutely, it has been reported the entire time up until now. And now all of a sudden, over a month later, they come talking about the Cajun Navy found his body. Now, why would they be changing and switching up the story? Are y'all getting what I'm putting down? I want you to pay attention. Now, I'm not making any accusations or assumptions. What I'm saying, well, I am making assumptions, but what I'm saying is I have questions as to why this story is changing. You see, because as I told you all previously, I was already suspicious and had doubts or questions as to why the ranger was nowhere to be found, why they were remaining so anonymous, why they weren't coming out and giving any talks about how the body was, what they did to find the body, how long it took them, were they actually looking, or did they just stumble upon the body on January or July the 6th at approximately 8:45 in the morning? Okay, I just have several questions. Martina says, stop listening to the people that are spreading misinformation. They are behind the times. Well, certainly there are absolutely people spreading misinformation. Now, I think it's very interesting at the end of the day that now they're changing the story. Martina says the park ranger is not going to speak. Well, that's apparent. He hasn't spoken. But the bottom line is, did the park ranger even find Nolan? Because now they're saying that it was the Cajun Navy. And that to me is absolutely suspicious. I now have more questions. Okay, I now have even more questions. Okay, Maris MC says, thanks for everything, Queen. You're welcome, beloved. Okay, so, just sit with that for a moment and draw your own conclusions, because in the 11th hour, here comes the story switching up. And I just have to wonder, is it because see, here's the thing. I want you all to pay attention because you all know you hear most of this stuff first here. I told you all that I had questions as to whether the ranger, I said, did a ranger actually find him? I have questions as to whether the Cajun Navy or a ranger found him. I'm questioning everything because if there's nothing to see here, folks, why are there so many inconsistencies? Why are there so many conflicting stories? Why are there a myriad of contradictions? Why are things just switching? Okay, but also something else I want to point out to you that I noticed. I happen to notice also that, I reported to you that the young men, the frenemies of Nolan, that's what I call them. You may call them otherwise. But I pointed out to you all, you also heard that here first. On this channel, beloveds, on the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur TV, on the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show, we actually have been covering this story for weeks, since the beginning. Okay, since the beginning, we capture these stories that are very intriguing, and where there's questions surrounding things that have happened to people who look like me. We start covering those stories right away, not jumping on bandwagons after the fact, as some do. But here's the thing. I told you all that I thought it was very interesting in the beginning of this whole thing. And I had questions as to how or why this person really actually found Nolan. Okay, now you all already know that I also have said that I had questions as to whether or not Nolan was actually in that water for 2 whole days. I had questions as to whether or not he actually passed away on Horn Island or was later brought there. Now, we don't have all of the questions and the facts, and as of this date, no one has been accused of any wrongdoing. No one has been given any criminal, has had any criminal accusations from the sheriff or anywhere else. So we're trying to piece this all together. But this makes me even a bit more suspicious, because why the switch up? But let me just say this. As I reported to you all days ago about the boys, the young men in conducting their own private investigation, saying that they're going to return to Horn Island with their attorney, and they're going to look for the layout of the land and the layout of the land and the dynamics. That's what they said. They claimed they weren't going to be looking for clues. At least that's what the article said, right? But what I find interesting is now, people are saying, oh, they're doing an investigation, and CNN reported that they were doing their own private investigation. But you know why I find that interesting? Because weren't people, in fact, going in on Nolan's parents and Ben Crump? Weren't they, in fact, going in on them and saying that rather than conducting their own private investigation, shouldn't they just sit back and wait and let law enforcement do their thing? Isn't that what people were saying? Of course, that's what people were saying. People were saying they were going in on Crump, saying that Crump's making it about race. How come they can't just sit back and let the police do their job, basically? Okay, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of what people were saying. And they seem to be so upset about the fact that they were doing so. Now that these young men are out there with their attorneys, it's crickets. It's crickets. No one's complaining about that. So you mean to tell me that yes, absolutely, Ebony Plumber, they attacked Nolan's parents and they still continue to do so. Okay, they still continue to do so. But here's the thing. So they're out there investigating themselves. Who are they investigating? What are they investigating exactly? Okay, because I thought that, according to Sheriff Ledbetter, there was really nothing to see here, folks. No evidence of foul play. Yeah. Now, also, it's of note that the state autopsy, the first autopsy, has now been completed. So we know that the DA came out and addressed, everything, and specifically things that were being said or alleged on social media, and basically wanted people to just let them go ahead with their investigation, and saying they were going to do the same thing they would do in any case of someone found dead and they don't have all of the answers. They're going to conduct the investigation the same way with Nolan that they would with anyone else. So I find it all interesting. Now, hold on, beloveds. Monique says, question from the time they found Nolan, did law enforcement place a yellow ribbon to mark the area where he was found so that no one could contaminate the area under investigation? Well, here's the thing. I don't know, beloved, because I wasn't there, and nor have I seen any news footage that would say so. But ordinarily, when there is a body found or signs of a crime being committed, absolutely, they tend to seal off the area with the yellow crime scene tape, and they put down the little cones and things, and they secure the area as not to contaminate the crime scene. But I don't know if they did that in this case. Like I said, they have not showed us any information to suggest that they did, and they likely did. Maybe they just didn't let us see that, but of course that's protocol, so I would think that they did. Now, Martina V says they are probably trying to get evidence for their defense against the wrongful death. What evidence, though? What evidence would they get? What evidence would they get? They said they're going out there to look at the layout of the land and dynamics. They said, or their attorney said, they're not looking for clues. But that makes no sense, because if you're not looking for clues, why are you calling it, and why is it being called an investigation? If you're just going out there to look at the layout and the dynamics, why is it being called an investigation? Okay, I have several questions, is all I'm saying. And so, yeah, like I said, contradictory. Now, let's go to this clip from CNN. Okay. that feminine energy seems to think that maybe there's a cleanup going on. Honey, I don't know what is going on, but I know it's a whole lot of hypocrisy going on in this case, as far as I'm concerned. Now, this is a previous report from July the 20th, where they talk about conflicting stories emerge of why teens split with friends before death. Let's get into it.
Very different than the family's justice. And we're going to have to do the things that we need to do to check every box so that this family can get some closure about what actually happened with their son, because what's being said right now and what's being suggested does not make sense.
Hey guys, Joe Richardson, McCune Law Group. Listen, this Nolan Wells tragedy, it goes beyond words in terms of how tragic it is. But the concerns that the family has, which are legitimate concerns, are rooted in both circumstance and history. They've got unanswered questions that should be answered. And ultimately, even though I comment on it recently on CNN, which we're getting ready to show you, this is really a perfect example of the intersection between the law and common sense. I think that's why so many people are paying attention to it. May rest in peace.
Joining us now to discuss the investigation is civil rights attorney Joe Richardson. Joe, thanks so much for being with us this evening. Ben Crump, who's representing the family, told Jake Tapper earlier that his number one question here is why Nolan left his cell phone. The family also says that he went hours without posting to Snapchat. They're wondering if those posts, if they exist, could have potentially been deleted. How crucial is that phone in terms of evidence? How could that help determine what really happened?
It's the beginning, good to be with you, boys. It's the beginning and the ending of the largest questions related to this case. First of all, he's a social kid. He snaps. He sends pictures, etc. They're out on July the 4th. They're out on the island doing their thing. There would seem to be, there would be information that would be missing if there's no snaps and if there's no pictures. And then the phone, again, the phone. Why
On earth would anyone separate themselves from their phone? No one would do that. It's a safety issue. And for young people, it's a status issue. We don't do anything without our phone. And if it's true that he's going to go away and not be with his friends, that makes it all the more important for him to have his phone.
Investigators are asking for any original unedited photos and videos from the island, including any that show an alleged altercation or even just Wells himself. What are they going to need to build a reliable timeline and to separate verified evidence from rumors that flood social media?
They're going to have to get to the heart of the matter. But what I would say is they're not going to do that by saying, skip to all the firsthand information right now. If you are lacking information, particularly in a place where there aren't a whole lot of public cameras, et cetera, because it's an island, et cetera, you've got to start off with whatever you hear. And then you make distinctions between what can be followed up on, what ought to be followed up on, what makes sense, what tracks and what doesn't. So I don't think that the investigating agency should be as discriminate right now about the information that needs to come in. If they're truly trying to get to the bottom of this, you take everything at face value, what you hear, you see what tracks, and you see where it takes you, as opposed to dealing with, in some perception, what might be a predetermined outcome.
Joe, the family has called for an independent autopsy and a fully transparent investigation. We heard from Ben Crump saying that Mississippi's racial history helps explain why they're skeptical and they want outside scrutiny. What can authorities do now to give this family confidence that they're following up on every lead?
The most important thing is transparency. Go above and beyond so that you have shown every card that you have out there. You left no stone unturned. You looked at everything. And frankly, it would start by making sure, like, for instance, apparently Nolan's best friend hasn't been interviewed yet. He doesn't seem to have a problem with it, but it would be a natural place to start. Check all of the boxes so that when you come up with the result that you do, the family, which is already tasked with doing something that no family wants to do, and that's bury a child, they can move on the best way that they can. It's not something you get over, but it's something that you can try to get through. But it starts with transparency about knowing everything that they could know. And maybe if that independent autopsy is inconclusive or is consistent with what this coroner does, then maybe that's a starting point.
Joe, before we go, the mother of one of the men pictured with Wells happens to be a local judge. She put out a lengthy post on Facebook this week trying to dispel rumors, saying that her son is fully cooperating with authorities. Was it appropriate for her to speak out about an active investigation this way as a judge?
No, it was not. You don't put your toe in the water as a judge. Normally, the only public statements the judges are making are about the cases that they're actually judging. She may have vacillated over it. She's got to know better. But when she did that, it was a mistake, because now she's talking about, she says she's doing it so that the people can concentrate, the family, we can focus on the family's grief. But the family's grief is very different than the family's justice. And we're going to have to do the things that we need to do to check every box so that this family can get some closure about what actually happened with their son, because what's being said right now and what's being suggested does not make sense.
Hey guys, Joe Richardson, McCune.
Okay, I want you all to pay attention, because I told you all that when she first came out and said something, that's the first thing I told her. I told you all that she had no business coming out saying anything. Okay, We Beat You said, can you drop the link, Queen? No, I can't, beloved, not today. Okay, sorry. So Nunavin says, thanks and keep up the good work, Queen. Well, thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. I certainly will. Okay. So Martina says, people keep repeating the phone and keys argument. Hold on. Chat's moving quickly. Says, people keep repeating the phone and keys argument, and it's not suspicious at all. Well, you know, Martina, it may not be suspicious to you. Okay, it may not be suspicious to you, but everyone doesn't think like you think. Other people have their own opinions. And with that all being said, it is suspicious to me. Anyone with common sense, it should be suspicious, because let me just tell you why. And I'm glad you brought that up, because another thing that Martina said, I saw in the chat, is that people don't know anything about voting, suggesting that people should know that you don't take your phone into the water. Well, I think we all know that. That's probably common sense. But the bottom line is, they're not talking about, when people are saying things about the phone and keys, Martina V, let me explain this, because it seems as if you're the one that's confused. Now, beloved, when people are talking about the keys and the phone specifically, let's talk about the phone. They're not suggesting that Nolan would have taken his phone in the water. They know he would have left it on the boat. That's what most of the people do when they go out there. Okay, we know that. The question for people is, that people seem to find extremely suspicious, myself included, is the fact that if Nolan chose to stay on the island and not ride back with his friends on the same boat that he arrived on, then he would have likely asked for his phone. He would have likely asked to get his phone back. Don't you think? Don't you think that he would have wanted his phone back? Because I certainly would think so. That is the first thing I would have said. Hey, well, let me get my phone off the boat. Because if you're out there and your friends are gone and you don't have any idea whether or not you're going to actually be able to catch a ride, you're just hoping that possibly you can ride with someone, I would think that you would want to have your phone with you. And even if you caught a ride with someone, I would think that you would still want to have your phone with you after catching the ride back, so that when you got to a place where there's better cell service, you could use your phone more so. So the fact that he spent the night with Warren and Wyatt, and his keys were supposedly at Wyatt's house, well, and also his car. I would be curious as to why he would, or I am curious as to why he would not ride back with the same people, knowing that he would need to get his car and his keys. Because if you catch a ride back with different people that you really don't know like that, or however and whoever, these people you now have to be worried about after you get back with them to the dock. You now have to worry about how you're going to get to the house that you spent the night at, where your car is. And you would need your phone to get all of that taken care of, I'm so sure. So that's what people are saying, Martina. And that absolutely makes sense to me, and in fact should be common sense. No one is saying anything. See, what you're doing is the same thing Tap Dancing Tatum does. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, but at the same time, you're trying to deflect away from the real issue of why people are curious. You're trying to make it seem as though foolishly we all think that he should have been out there in the water with his phone and had it on him. That's not what anyone with sense is saying. And if you took it that way, then maybe you need to brush up on your common sense or lack thereof. Now, with that all being said, let me continue. And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's just given that you're trying to paint a picture here that nothing happened to Nolan. And maybe nothing did happen to Nolan. But you're also trying to give trying to make it seem as though there's nothing to see here. And it's as if no one should be questioning these young men or the circumstances surrounding Nolan's death. And I find that interesting because we have seen that not only has Nolan turned up dead in recent weeks, but there has been several other young men about his same age who look like him who have also turned up missing within the last few weeks. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so please pay attention. Yes, we have questions, and rightfully so. And only the people who don't really care or have empathy and sympathy for people who look like me are the people trying to act as though there's nothing to see here, folks. Y'all are doing too much. I'm just going to tell you like it is. Okay, because that's what I'm here to do. Now, again, I'm not making any accusations against anyone. What I'm saying is things just don't seem to be adding up. And I do, in fact, have several questions, as do other people, and we rightfully so. Okay, I'm not going to give people the benefit of the doubt when you have told stories that contradict other stories that you yourself told, as well as other people that have been, were involved in going on that trip with you. I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt if you sat on the couch speaking to Rage Batum Tap Dancing Tatum and you said things that made no sense, and you didn't have any signs of empathy, you didn't have any signs of sadness, you didn't seem the least bit choked up, you spoke freely, and you spoke as if you were just simply thinking about what you were going to have for dinner. Yeah, I'm not going to give those type of people the benefit of the doubt. But again, I'm also not going to say that they committed any crime because thus far they've not been accused of any crimes. But I will ask questions. And I have a right to ask questions, and we all do. Whether Martina V or anyone else likes it or not, it is what it is. I think we should all be asking questions about this case. No one's going to sit there and try to paint a pretty little picture that there's nothing to see here, folks, and think I'm just going to go along with it. Okay, I might have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. Okay, I didn't fall off the turnip truck is all I'm saying. Okay, I'm asking questions that absolutely need to be asked, and it's not just me who should be asking these questions. I absolutely feel that in fact the police, law enforcement, they should have the same questions. Okay, that's what I think. I think they should want to know where was or why didn't Nolan ask for his phone? Why didn't they give him his phone if in fact they left him there, as they say? Okay, that's only common sense. That's only common sense. Please pay attention. Now, my words may seem a bit harsh because they're to the contrary of your narrative, but at the end of the day, I'm just telling it like it is. Okay, I'm not trying to paint any narratives. See, that's the difference between me and people like that. I don't try to paint narratives. I just ask the questions that need to be asked. Okay, and when I see something not adding up, I'm definitely going to address it, as we all should. Okay, if we actually care about getting to the truth of it, if we actually care about finding out what actually happened to Nolan, okay, that's all I'm saying. Those young men, they may be absolutely innocent, and I hope that they are. Because who wants to know or think that something dreadful actually happened to Nolan? We would prefer that it was an accident, but it doesn't look like an accident, in my opinion. It seems that things have taken, things are just not. This is what I'll say, just to sum it all up. It seems as though we may not be getting all of the information. Okay, it seems as though some people may not be putting everything out there that is known. Okay, I just don't think that certain people are giving us all the information they know. I think they know more. Some people know more than they are in fact letting on. That's what I think. Now, I want to bring up something that Dr. Umar addressed. So Dr. Umar, now, I had these clips. Truth Brown sent them to me last night. Okay, yes, I'm going to go to this because Dr. Umar did an interview, and he had some very insightful things to say. So I'm going to pull this up, a couple of clips from that interview. And another thing is, I also find it interesting, as I said previously, that these young men are out there doing a supposed private investigation themselves, but so many had so much to say as it pertained to the parents wanting to conduct their own independent investigation. I mean, it is their child. I would absolutely want to be looking into it myself as well. Okay, I don't see anything wrong with that, but supposedly so many people do. Another thing is when people say, "Oh, it's not about race," and let's not make it about race. Well, I don't think that Black people collectively are the ones who, in fact, made it about race. You see, here's the thing. I happen to notice, and I'm sure we all have, that the FBI has done a good job of going and catching the people that have been investigating the people and making arrests in the case of people threatening. Okay, the people, the so-called frenemies is what I call them. I don't think they were real friends. They may have been, but that's just not what I think. But nonetheless, there have been supposed threats to them and their families, and people have gone out. The FBI and the police have gone out and investigated those threats and found people responsible and arrested them, as they should. Because no one should be threatening anyone about this case, especially when none of us know the truth. None of us know what actually happened. We're all just playing a guessing game here. We're all just trying to look at what we see that's being put out to the public. But the bottom line is, I don't think they are using the same amount of energy, okay, and vigor to go after the people that are supposedly threatening the Wills, okay, the Wansleys. There's been no arrest in anyone who has made threats to them. And I think that has to do with race. I also think it has to do with race, the fact that people have called Christine Wansley's job and they've told things or said things about her anonymously to try and make her get fired. They even had an investigation launched into her because of these so-called claims and complaints. That is all to do with race, in my opinion, because why else would they do it? This woman's not doing anything. She's out here trying to find answers to her son's death. What is wrong with that? And I'll bring up again that when Beth Holloway was out there looking for her child, Natalie Holloway, before she got the answers, that woman turned over every rock and stone. She did everything she could, and rightfully so. My heart went out to her. As every one of ours should have, because no one should have to lose their child. Okay, but Natalie was drinking heavily on the night that she went missing, and there were many people who said that. Okay, so with that being said, no one bashed her. No one tried to make her a villain. No one tried to blame Natalie and say, "Oh, well, Natalie was drinking heavily. Maybe she just wandered off into the sea, or maybe she just went out there into the ocean. She was in Aruba." Nobody said any of those things. No one tried to paint those narratives about her, and nor should they have. She was an innocent young girl celebrating graduating, happy and excited to be going off to college, and she was about to start her life, just like Nolan. A beautiful young lady. She did not deserve to lose her life. But the thing is that's so sad is that while Black people, myself included, had empathy and sympathy for Beth Holiday, and I still do. It is dreadful what happened to Natalie. But at the end of the day, there are many people who don't look like me, the MAGA millions, i.e. the Confederates, as I call them. They have no empathy and sympathy for Nolan Wells, and that's fine. They don't have to. But what they should do is keep their racism in check. Okay, not be going around here threatening, talking trash, belittling, or just coming on down hard and trying to drag through the mud Nolan's poor family, specifically the parents, okay, mainly his mother. That's what they shouldn't be doing. But those people are devils, and that's just what devils do. So none of us should be ever shocked. Okay, so with that all being said, let's get to what Dr. Umar had to say. As a matter of fact, before we go to Dr. Umar, do I want to pull this up? Let's go to this report here. One searcher described the area where Nolan's body was found as a dangerous area full of riptides. Okay, so I want to play this audio. I may not show it on the screen because this is from Oxygen and I don't need any copyright issues. Likes up, everyone please like and share. Let me find an overlay to put on top of this. And I want to listen to this audio because I have not heard a report from them. I'll put up a picture of Brandon Tatum on the screen.
Nolan Wells' death after the 18-year-old went missing on a 4th of July boat trip to Mississippi's Horn Island. The Southwest Mississippi Community College student and football player was last seen alive on Horn Island on July 4th, according to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. The sheriff told ABC News, Nolan Wells was on a boat. He left from a private dock area in the Ocean Springs area and proceeded with his friends to Horn Island, adding, they left and went back without Nolan. From what we understand, he chose to stay there. After Wells didn't return home, his mother Christine Wansley reported him missing at midnight, according to WLOX, sparking a multi-day search effort. At around 8:45 a.m. on July 6th, a body that matched the description of Wells was discovered off the shore of the island's northwest end, the sheriff confirmed to the New York Post that day. The body was confirmed to be Wells through dental records. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lynn told CBS News. He additionally shared that an autopsy took place on July 7th, but findings from it have not yet been made public. In a statement on Facebook, Wansley shared that she was, quote, absolutely devastated by her son's loss, saying, my heart is broken for our sweet son, who was always willing to cheer and uplift others. Nolan was a special soul. God took his time creating our son. I ask that you all please give me and my family privacy as we grieve. On July 7th, the sheriff's office announced that they were continuing to actively investigate the circumstances surrounding Wells' death and were, quote, working to establish the facts through eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, and other reliable information. The department also sought the public's help in their efforts, asking for anyone who was on Horn Island on July 4th to reach out if they, quote, observed or heard an argument, disturbance, or other unusual activity, or if they took any unedited photos and videos on the island, believed to include Wells. The sheriff's department saying, original media often contains critical details that may be essential to the ongoing investigation, adding, even information that may seem insignificant could prove valuable to investigators. We encourage anyone with firsthand knowledge to come forward. In an interview published on July 7th, the sheriff told ABC News that at this time, investigators do not suspect foul play, saying, there is no information that we have right now that would lead us to believe that a crime has occurred. Amid the investigation, civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump has announced that he's been retained by Wells' family. Writing on X, his family deserves answers. They deserve the truth. We will not rest until every fact about what happened to Nolan on Horn Island is brought into the light, and we call on investigators to pursue this case with the urgency and transparency this family deserves.
All right. With that all being said, let me remove Tatum from the screen. Thanks, Tatum, for helping us out there. Ha! Bootlicker. Okay, now, with that all being said, let's go to what Dr. Umar has to say about it all. There's numerous clips. There's numerous clips of Dr. Umar, so I'm going to play about 3 or 4 because I was listening to it last night, and Truth Brown, thank you for sending it to me because I was like, he's absolutely on point. I'm going to use an overlay because I do not have permission. Shout out to Art of the Dialogue for this amazing interview.
Warren, I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. They never thought anybody was coming for Nolan's phone and keys. They never thought anyone was coming for Nolan's phone and keys because they didn't know Sister Christine had Life 360 on that phone. They did not know that. You left your best friend on an island, your so-called brother. You left him on an island with no way to get off, and you took his phone and his keys. Can you explain that to me, Warren? While you're thinking about it, I got another question for you, Warren, while you're thinking about it. You said at 11 o'clock, you called Miss Christine to see if she heard from her son. Warren said, Art, I called Miss Christine to see if she heard from Nolan. She said she had not heard from Nolan. Can I ask you a question, Warren? If you took his phone, how in the hell was his mother supposed to hear from her son when you have the son's phone? Did you tell Miss Christine that you had her son's phone when you called her? I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't. He called the mother and asked her if she heard from her son. But he knows she didn't hear from her son, Art, because he has her son's phone. How can the mother hear from Nolan when you have Nolan's cell phone and you left him on an island? And I bet you didn't tell her you had his phone. Because if she knew you had his phone, Art, she would not have had to use Life 360 to find the phone. If you had his phone and you called her at 11 o'clock to see
I'm sorry, but that's exactly what I said. Okay, that's exactly what I said. All right, please pay attention. Now, mind you, we all heard Warren sit there on Rage Batum, Tap Dancing Tatum's platform and say, he said, I told her that I had Nolan's phone. That's what he said. He said, I told her that we had Nolan's phone. He either said I told her I had it or that we had it. But here's the thing. Did he tell her that? Because if he actually told her that, as Dr. Umar just asked, and I asked you the same thing weeks ago, why would she be using Life 360 to track the phone? Why would she have asked Javon about the phone? Why would she have sent Tashima to go and get the phone? If she knew, or if he told her that they had Nolan's phone, don't you think she would have just told him to bring it to her, or she would have gone to get it from them? At the end of the day, that makes no sense. And when he said that, I didn't believe him then, and I don't believe him now. Okay. And I have questions as to whether some people are trying to create reasonable doubt just in case, in the event of there being a court case. Okay. A criminal court case. I have several questions. Okay. I have several questions. Now, with that all being said, let's go to another clip from Dr. Umar. Okay, Martina says Tashima evidently got other phones when she picked up Nolan's phone. Well, I don't know if she got other phones because I haven't read that in any of the reports, nor have I seen anyone or heard anyone say that in any reports. But what I do know is that Warren claims that Tashima came to pick up Nolan's phone. He said that himself when he was on that interview with Rage Batum, Tap Dancing Tatum. And he also said that she kicked in the door. Didn't he say that? That she basically came and barged on in the door. Okay, didn't knock or whatever, just came on up in there demanding the phone. And then he stepped outside with one of the guys that he knew from high school, supposedly. And the guy was telling him, oh, it's nothing to worry about. Nolan's probably asleep on the couch and all of that. And he agreed. And again, I said, if that's the case, if it was no big deal and you think he's probably asleep, then why would anyone have felt the need to call the Coast Guard or to even call Miss Wansley and worry her about it if that's simply what they thought? Okay. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Let's continue because Dr. Umar's not playing games. Here we go.
We already talked about the background noise that the audio engineer, our beautiful black sister, Jeanette Brentley, cleaned up. Sounds very suspicious, Art. It sounds like they may have been in the act of unaliving Nolan Wells when they made the call. It sounds like they may have been in the act of unaliving Nolan Wells when they made the call, Art.
Now, let me just say, mind you, that any of the video clips that I show with other people giving their commentary and theories or ideas and views or opinions on the Nolan Wells case have nothing to do with my own thinking or thoughts and are absolutely not, a part of this channel's commentary or what we have to suggest. Let's continue.
Allegedly. And guess what, Art? That would make perfect sense. You want to know why? Because the call was bogus. Nothing was wrong with that shit. This is my allegations. This is my belief and my allegations, and I'm standing on it. Nothing was wrong with the boat, Art, and I'm going to explain to you how we know this. Nothing was wrong with that boat. They made that call because they needed an alibi, Art. They needed an alibi. So if Nolan Wells, when Nolan's body was found, Art, if they were able to determine the time of death, when Nolan's body was found, and if they were able to determine the time of death, they say, wait a minute, Nolan was unalived at 4 o'clock. Guess what, Art? They could say our boat was sinking at 4 o'clock and we was on the phone with Cito. The phone call was an alibi, Art. The phone call was a decoy. The phone call was a bait and switch. There was nothing wrong with that boat, Art. So listen, we know that Mississippi is going to find all the audio engineers they can find, Art. We know that Mississippi is going to find all the audio engineers that they can find, Art, to try to say that the background noise cannot be corroborated or verified. You know they're going to say that. They're going to say we can't use the background noise. It's too much going on. We don't care what Sister Jeanette Brantley had to say. We don't care what y'all conspiracy theorists got to say. We had our own FBI audio engineers listen to it, and they can't make out the conversation. I believe it says what Sister Jeanette Brantley says it says. I believe it, Art. It makes perfect sense. They called at the time that they were unaliving him to have an alibi and an excuse. They called a Cito company at 4 o'clock. We already talked about the back.
Okay, so now with that all being said, likes up, everyone, please like and share. Let's go on to the next clip because Dr. Umar's on a roll, isn't he? You know, and as I have been telling you all for weeks, I have several questions. I told you all as well that I had questions as to whether or not that was in fact a call made to establish, an alibi. And I'm not saying that it was. I'm just saying that I had questions as to whether or not that were the case. Now, with that being said, let's go to the rest of what Dr. Umar said. And mind you, Dr. Umar's opinions are strictly his own, and they do not belong to this channel, nor do any of the comments you all put in the chats. Those are your comments specifically, okay, to you all. I don't own them, is all I'm saying.
Saying here, Art, it's kind of interesting that they all saw him last at 3:30, not after 3:30. Javon 3:40, roughly 3:30. My point is, Art, for all three of them to have the same exact time, if they did not see each other at all during these conversations with Nolan, are they pushing up the window of time during which they saw Nolan so they cannot be included in this investigation as a witness to a crime? In other words, Art, I don't think Javon had nothing to do with it. I know he didn't. But is he saying he saw Nolan a little earlier than he saw him so he can't be pulled into the investigation? I don't think Katie had nothing to do with the crime. But is Katie putting her conversation with Nolan a little earlier than it actually took place to make sure she can't be dragged into the investigation as a witness to a crime? Is it possible that the coach is putting his conversation with Nolan earlier than what it was, Art, to make sure he cannot get dragged into the investigation? I don't think they had anything to do with it, but they could have been a witness to a homicide, Art. They could have been witness to a homicide. If they did not see each other, if none of those three people, the coach, Javon, and Katie, if they did not see each other at all talking to Nolan, if none of them saw each other talking to Nolan, at least two of them are lying about the time they last saw Nolan. Are you following me, Art? I want you to follow what I'm saying here, Art.
Okay, let's continue. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Okay, here we go.
Who did Nolan tell Warren was his best friend? Who did Nolan ever tell Tristan was his best friend? I'm not going to question Javon, because he's a brother. And I do believe that there's a strong chance that they may have been best friends. And I say that not only because Javon is a brother, Art, but I also felt that Javon, through the investigation team and alley-oop, with some of the answers that he gave on TMZ. Some of Javon's answers, in my opinion, kind of made it clear to me he actually cared about Nolan. He actually cared about Nolan. I believe Javon actually cared about Nolan and
Now, I have to absolutely agree with that. I did tell you all that I felt like Javon was his actual best friend. He was one of the pallbearers at the funeral. He's the one who went with his mother, Tashima, to help retrieve Nolan's phone. He's the one who initially came out on social media expressing his love and the fact that he was going to miss Nolan immediately after Nolan's body was found deceased. So I have to agree with him. He's the one that has, in my opinion, acted in a way that a best friend should. Let's continue.
because of that, I'm willing to say that Javon may have actually been Nolan's best friend. I wish somebody would have asked Javon Art, to your knowledge, has Nolan ever called Warren his best friend? Has Nolan ever called Tristan his best friend? To your knowledge, Javon, has Nolan ever told you that Warren and Tristan were best friends of his? Because Art, I'm having a problem with this three best friend narrative. Okay. I used to be 18 years old. You might have one best friend. You may have two. Don't get me wrong. If you all hang in a pack, you could have three best friends. But according to Javon's own words, Art, he didn't really hang around with them other guys too much. That's what I allegedly thought I heard him say. He didn't hang around with them guys too much. So if you got 2 or 3 or 4 best friends, you guys normally travel as a group. Javon seemed like he kind of spent most of his time with Nolan alone, just the two of them, not with Tristan and Warren, although he.
Let me just add to that, okay? Because you all know that I have shown you videos of Nolan, and in the videos of Nolan, in which I'll show you one after momentarily, but I've shown you all videos with Nolan when he was with Javon, and they were just the two of them together. And I also said that I don't think that his black friends, Nolan's black friends, necessarily hung out with his white friends. It just didn't seem like they all hung out together collectively as a group, because you see videos and pictures of him with black friends, and then you see the videos and pictures of him with his white friends. So it's like the friend groups were kind of separated. So I absolutely feel that Javon did not hang around them much. And then also you notice that in the interview with Rage Tatum, Tap Dancing Tatum, that Warren made a comment at one point, and I brought it up at the time. I brought it to your attention that he said something along the lines of Javon was Nolan's friend. And then he said something like, well, yeah, he was my friend too. But it seemed like he really wasn't, in my opinion. But let's continue.
Knew them, it didn't appear that he hung out with them on the road. Who did Nolan tell?
I don't think that Nolan may have told anyone that Warren was his best friend. I believe that that is something that Warren, Tristan, okay, and there was another person who they said also in an article that I read to you all recently that they claimed that person was also Nolan's best friend. And I'm like, it was either Jax or Morgan. And I said, so now there's another best friend. These people are what I would call likely self-proclaimed best friends. And in fact, one of the articles that I read, that's what they suggested that Warren was, a self-proclaimed best friend, meaning that he's the one that's claiming that, and that we don't know if Nolan ever felt that or ever said that. Okay. So with that all being said, let's continue. Now, this next video is interesting. I'm going to get into it. Martina says parents of Javon were besties, and unfortunately, Javon was younger. Right. Javon's mother, Tashima, is good friends with Christine Wansley. And so I feel like that's likely why Javon and Nolan were such good friends, of course. And that's why I absolutely think that Javon is his actual, or was his actual best friend. Now, I'm going to go to this next clip where this lady is, to me, she's talking crazy. And she just doesn't seem to, I don't know. I'll let you all. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to just play the audio because I just clicked on the video and I have to sign in to TikTok. So I'm not going to do all of that. So what I will do is I'll just play the audio and you all can hear what she has to say, because I thought it was very interesting. It seemed as though she was really like going in. Well, it didn't seem like she was. She was literally going in on Christine Wansley. And this is a lady who looks like me. So that's, I find very interesting. Now, before I play what she has to say, let me just say this for the record. Okay, the views, opinions, statements, allegations, and accusations expressed by guests, interviewees, callers, individuals appearing in third-party videos or other content shared on this channel, and viewers posting comments are solely those of individuals expressing them. They do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, conclusions, or factual assertions of the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show, its host, the host, which is me, or affiliates. Now, this channel, please pay attention. Now, we may discuss or share allegations, claims, theories, public statements, news reports, social media content, interviews, and other third-party material for purposes of commentary, criticism, discussion, reporting, education, and public awareness. The inclusion or discussion of an allegation or accusation should not be interpreted as an endorsement or independent assertion that the allegation is true. So unless clearly stated otherwise, individuals discussed in connection with the alleged criminal or wrongful conduct should be presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. Because we don't know if these young men had anything to do with the demise of Nolan. We don't know if they had any type of responsibility or whatever. So comments posted by viewers are created by independent third parties. Okay, this channel specifically does not adopt, endorse, verify, or assume responsibility for allegations, accusations, opinions, or factual claims made by commenters. All right, so with that all being said, I just want to remind you that viewers are encouraged to distinguish between verified facts, allegations, opinions, commentary, and speculation, and to review available primary sources and official information when forming your own conclusions. Okay? Now, the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show, you heard it here first. Now, let's get into it. Let's get into it because I want to hear this. I want y'all to hear it. This lady had a whole lot to say. Now, I'm going to turn up the volume. Now, listen to this.
Not it anymore. I wonder why. I'm going to tell you why.
Hold on. She said no one, pay attention. She says that no one is talking about the Nolan Wells case anymore. And she wonders why. Well, here's the thing. I absolutely beg to differ. Okay? I absolutely am paying attention to this. Now, listen. And by the way, her name is Andronique Marie.
For one, his mama, she's good. She's over on Facebook doing Get Ready With Me's under an assumed name. So there's that. Ben Crump, he's not even their primary attorney. Their primary attorney is a firm out of Mississippi. Ben Crump's license is out of Florida. So he's not even the primary. He's the co-counsel. So why hasn't the Mississippi law firm that's actually representing Nolan Wells' family, why aren't they talking? And why is his mother doing Get Ready With Me's on Facebook? And don't tell me everybody grieves differently, because I don't.
She said, and don't tell her everybody grieves differently, because what now?
Want to hear it.
Just because you don't want to hear it doesn't make it so, ma'am. I want you all to pay attention. See this lady right here? She's sitting here trying to go in on Nolan's mother because she's doing Get Ready With Me on Facebook. I don't see a problem with that. See, here's the thing. It's been over a month since Nolan passed away, and I'm sure this lady really knows at this point she has to just go on with her life. She's trying to keep up a brave face. Now, this is all my opinion. I don't know Mrs. Wansley, but here's the thing. It looks to me like she's just trying to do the best that she can with the situation that she has been handed, as we all would try to do, I'm sure. There's no way that I would ever bash any mother, no matter their race, color, creed, political views, or any political affiliations, or any of those things. If you are a parent who has lost your child, I'm going to show you empathy, because that is something that we don't want anyone to express. Even with nefarious Jeff and Megan Metcalf. I'm calling Jeff nefarious, not Megan necessarily, but I think that Jeff Metcalf is absolutely nefarious. But I did offer my condolences for the loss of Austin. Okay, and I did express that I felt sorry that the young man lost his life. Okay, he didn't deserve to, and I'm sure Carmelo Anthony didn't choose to. But at the end of the day, for someone to sit there and bash someone who has just lost their child because you don't like the way they're carrying on, because that is not in alignment with what you think or how you think they should be acting, it's just ghastly in my opinion. Now, I did go in on Jeff Metcalf, but that was because of the hateful, racist things that he said about Black people collectively. And I said at the time, why is he blaming all Black people? We didn't have anything to do with it. Why is he trying to drag us and talking about slavery and calling us lazy and saying all of these stereotypical things that need not even be said? because he was showing his true colors. That's why he did it. So that's why I dragged him for that. But initially, if anybody remembers, I expressed sympathy for that man. I even felt bad when Dominic Alexander, the spokesperson for the Carmelo Anthony family, when he made him leave the press conference. Did I not? You see, because I have a heart and I have humanity within me. I'm not just some low down, nefarious devil who wants to paint a narrative so desperately that I would dare to bash the victims or the person or people who have lost their own loved one, whether I think that they lost them due to self-defense or otherwise. I wouldn't do that. But this lady right here, she's a whole piece of work. Let's continue.
Just did a press conference the other day, essentially telling Black people, Black mothers especially, we're going to have to teach our Black children to be careful of white people.
Now, did anyone put a 1 in the chat? Because I never heard Mrs. Christine Wansley say anything like that. Please put a 1 in the chat if you heard Mrs. Christine Wansley tell people during a press conference that they have to teach their Black children to stay away or not be involved with white children. Did anyone hear her say that? Because the last thing I heard her say, or what I remember hearing her say, is that when she was asked, did she think it was about race? She said that she did not want to think that. She also stated that Nolan loved everybody. Okay, this lady is sitting up here saying things that I don't know where she's getting them from. Now, maybe she has a different source than I've been using. Maybe there's something or someone that has told her this was said. I have no idea. But what I do know is that I have never heard this. So for some of you who are putting 1s in the chat, you're suggesting that you didn't hear this, right? Okay, I think I may have said it the way I said it. I may have confused you all because I see 1s and 2s. But yes, but I see you all are saying that you don't remember her saying any such thing. Okay. Oh, Dante said she did, Queen. Oh, she did say that? Okay, well, I don't remember her saying that. Well, at the end of the day, here's the thing. Maybe that's how she feels now. I never heard her say that. Okay, some of you said you did hear her say that. I never heard her say that. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, maybe that's how she feels. But the thing is, maybe if she had felt that way in the beginning, we wouldn't be in this situation. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't. I'm just saying that maybe. But let's continue.
And you guys don't want to say that that's racism. You're going to teach your Black children to be afraid of white people? The third thing is the autopsy results, the state one, has been released to the family. So why is it that when they...
This is another thing. She says that the first autopsy report has been released to the family. And she's like, suggesting that, oh, they're not talking about that. Pay attention.
Got their independent autopsy result. Ben Crump did that whole theatrical thing for clicks and views and to get everybody emotionally worked up. But then when they get their autopsy report from the state, including the toxicology report, they're not referencing that. So I would imagine they don't want to talk about it because it's still an open investigation. But it didn't stop them from disclosing what the independent report said.
Well, here's the thing. Now, I want you all to pay attention. Now, this woman, it's like she's trying to put them in a catch-22. So basically, she's saying that they are not discussing the first autopsy report now that they have it in their possession. And I don't know that they have it in their possession. I don't know that for a fact. This is what she is saying. But she also says that they had no problem discussing the results of the independent autopsy. Well, of course, they didn't have any problem discussing that because they paid for it and they can discuss it if they want to. And that autopsy didn't particularly have anything to do with the investigation that Sheriff Ledbetter and anyone else was conducting. So absolutely, they could discuss that if they chose to. Why they're not discussing the first autopsy is absolutely because that autopsy has to go and be presented for review before a grand jury, ma'am. Now, this lady thinks that she's so smart and she's sitting up here looking so intellectual with her spectacles on and all of that. Okay, but she needs to get her facts straight.
It was okay to disclose that information, even though it was still a pending investigation. You know why? Because both of them have shown, allegedly, that it was an accidental drowning. And that's why you don't see it all over your social media feed anymore. That's why it's not.
Now, how does she know that? First of all, she's giving misinformation. Let me just say that. Because she says that both of the autopsy reports showed that it was an accidental drowning. Well, where did this come about? I've not heard this ever. For first of all, she said herself that we don't know what we have not been privy to the first autopsy report. So how would she know what the first one said and concluded? Next thing on the menu is the independent autopsy was said to have been undetermined because they couldn't give a precise reason as to the cause of death, the cause and matter of death, because they did not have the throat or the lungs. So why is she sitting here saying that both autopsies concluded that it was an accidental drowning? This lady is painting a narrative, and I'm curious as to why. Okay, I'm very curious as to why. Please pay attention.
In the news anymore because it's like nothing to see here. Additionally, Ben Crump is now representing the Corey Ruiz family. And of course, they've opened a GoFundMe. And let's talk about the fact that there's all kind of rumors. I'm going to say rumors. Allegedly, people are saying that Nolan Wells didn't even live with his family. He didn't live with his mama. He lived with relatives and friends, which kind of makes sense because that warrant.
Now, again, this lady may possibly be giving misinformation from the sounds of it, because here's the thing. I already showed you all yesterday. Remember, you heard it here first. I showed you the court documents that were searched for by none other than Nosy Rosie Sarah Fields. Okay, the court documents that she showed that basically showed, and matter of fact, let me pull that. I'll pull those back up in a minute for those of you who missed it. But basically, this lady is saying that Nolan, she doesn't believe that he lived with his mother. His mother has never said that. I don't believe anyone has ever said that other than people giving misinformation, speculation, and rumors. Okay, because the court documents didn't say anything about Nolan. And in fact, Nolan wasn't even born when the case started. It was her other 3 children that didn't live with her. It had nothing at all to do with Nolan. Please pay attention, but let's let her cook. Let's let her cook because she thinks that she's cooking with grease, apparently.
One guy said in the Brandon Tatum interview that Nolan spent the night at their house and that he always spent the night there. So why wasn't he sleeping with his family? And why, when Nolan Wells' mother is putting out pictures of her other kids, family photos and things, how come Nolan Wells isn't in any of those photos? Is it because...
Now, has she gone through every photo that Mrs. Wansley has put out? Because if she has not, then I'm curious as to how she can sit there and say that. Let's let her continue. She's almost done. I mean, I'm just curious to where she's getting her information from. She's not citing any sources or anything, so I'm inclined to think that she's making it up. Like, sub, everyone, please like and share.
Really didn't live with them? Nolan Wells, the case. No one's...
Okay, I'm going to stop her right there. Okay, now here's what I want you all to pay attention to. I'm going to go back to the video that I did. Of you who like, sub, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. I'm waiting for this to queue. Give me just a second, because I talked about all of this at the beginning of the live yesterday. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to play this again for those of you who missed it, because yesterday we mostly talked about the strange fruit being found. Hold on. But I did mention this in the beginning. So let's just go back to this, because this is some information that you all need to see. So when you hear people like her saying, oh, well, Nolan didn't live with, because that's not the first time I've heard someone suggest that. That's not the first time I've heard someone who doesn't care for the Wansleys. That's not the first time I've heard someone say that. And see, let me tell you all something, people. You should be tuning into every broadcast that the Queen does if you enjoy the commentary, because you never know what little tidbits of information that I may drop It may be a title about something that, you think you're not interested in, but I talk about a myriad of things in most of my videos, so you never know what you're going to miss. Not to mention, if you want to participate in the trivia on Fridays that I've started back recently, and I give away prizes and all of that, the only way you can win is to know the details of the broadcast for that week, because that's where I get my questions from. So if you have not watched all of the broadcasts, then you just may not win. It's all I'm saying. Okay, that's incentive for you to watch the broadcast. Okay, so let's continue. Decade ago. Do these people not have skeletons in their closet? Natural father, and it leaves out the... Hold on. Let me go back just a little bit.
I think it's phenomenal. Now, every case...
Mother who's grieving. So now they've gone and tried to dig up some stuff about her losing her older 3 kids. Okay, so we're going to get into it. And there's these three guys that are having a whole conversation about it. So let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. I'm going to share my screen. I mean, it's the nerve of some people. It is the nerve of some people. My thing is this. Some of these people spend all of their time focusing on us and whatever we have going on, but they should be worried about themselves and their own community. Do they not have problems? Yes, of course they do. Every group does, no matter what your race or ethnicity is. Every group has problems. Every group has good and bad people. That's just how it goes. But for some reason, nefarious devils want to act like we're just the only ones that have anything that's going on that's wrong. Okay, but that goes back to what I told you all 1,000 times before. It's I'm white and I say so. That's what it is. So let's get ready to get into it. I'm going to share my screen. And then here you will see that above their heads looks like a projector, they have the Chancery Court cases link. And they have Nolan's mom's name on there. And apparently she wasn't married at the time because it just says Christine Wells. But these devils, I don't know how deep they had to dig to find this, but we already know what their motivation is. It's hate. It's victim blaming and shaming. And it's trying to re-victimize the victim by turning them into the villain in their own story. It's sad and absolutely pathetic. Okay, but let's get into it.
Looks like old Christine Wansley Wells lost custody, her 3 oldest children, to their father. And you got to understand in Mississippi how difficult it is for the man to get full custody
It's
of
been
children.
that way for a long time.
That's why I was a big supporter of this 50-50 thing.
Yeah.
And the fact it passed. And there's some people mad about it. I saw somebody in my DM the other day say, I wish you would talk about this 50-50 law passing and what it's going to do. I was like, I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal. Now, every case is going to be a little different, but at least the starting point is even. And then you go from there. Like, I don't think it's going to be this big lopsided thing that's going to hurt children. I think it forces everything to be looked at from a 50-50 standpoint, and then you can go from there. We're not going to talk about that right now. I want to talk about this. Oh, so in Mississippi, you got to be a really bad mom to lose custody of your kids. They're just going to come out and say that, but I will. You got to be a bad mom to lose custody to the man. You really do. So Fairfield's dug into it. Like I said, we got the document up on the Mazda Jackson live stream there. It's a screenshot of the case and who the father is. Looks like old Christine Wansley Wells lost custody, her 3 oldest children, to their father. And you got to understand.
Now just listen to them. Sitting there gossiping like females. Okay, so it's giving female feminine energy. That's what it's giving. They don't have anything better to do. There's nothing manly they can be out there doing besides gossiping. Okay? And here's the thing. Now, though they said that she lost custody, they didn't say why. Okay? They didn't say why at the end of the day. And who knows if it's even true. I mean, maybe it is true, but at the end of the day, that's none of their business, okay? These people love to paint narratives. Why don't they talk about some of these people who look like them, who adopt children who look like me, and then those children turn up dead? Why don't they talk about people like Chris Watts, who murdered his entire family. That includes his wife and his 3 beautiful children. Why don't they talk about that? You know what? I tell you what, I was going to talk about this last week, and then I got, caught up with the Nolan stuff. So how about this? How about, since they want to go there, how about I just talk about all of these people who look like them who murdered their whole families? Why don't we just do a whole thing on that, please? Make it all make sense. That's right. Grandma Lady said real men don't got the defendant.
Have you ever wanted to see your home from space?
Minor children herein for state and federal tax purposes. The urgent and necessary.
Have you ever wanted to see your home from?
Sorry, beloveds, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on. 20 years ago? That's interesting because Mrs. Christine Wansley looks very young. She looks younger than be adjudged to be the natural father of the minor children. The defendant, James Briscoe, is a fit, proper person to have custody, and he has a fit and proper place for the minor children to live. That the defendant should be grateful the legal care, custody, and control of the minor children with reasonable visitation rights being granted to the plaintiff, Christine C. Wells. What? Hold on, let me read that again. That the defendant should be granted the legal care, custody, and control of the minor children with reasonable visitation rights being granted to plaintiff, okay, Christine C. Wells. Okay, thus continuing to serve the best interests of the minor children of the parties. Furthermore, the defendant should be allowed to claim the minor children herein for state and federal tax purposes. The urgent and necessary, I think that's what that says. I can't really see it. Circumstances exist herein that the plaintiff, Christine C. Wells, will not allow visitation between the defendant and the minor children herein. That the plaintiff, Christine C. Wells, is unstable. The plaintiff has unstable housing, unstable employment, and an inadequate place for the children to live, among other things that are detrimental to the minor child. Now, the said circumstances do not serve the best interests of the children, and the said circumstances are detrimental to the minor children. This is a temporary hearing, should be held therein. Now, that's what the paperwork says, okay? But, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say if this was 19 years ago, almost 20, this lady was probably like 19 or 20 years old because she looks really young. I would have thought she was probably in her late 30s, mid to late 30s. So I'm just wondering how old she was then. Okay, so anyway, here's what Sarah Fields has to say, because she's the one who posted this. And it says Sarah is censored. Okay, it says there are a lot of rumors and speculations circulating about Nolan Wells' mother, Christine Wells, and an old custody case involving her children. Some of the posts I have seen take a few pieces of the court docket and then fill in the blanks with assumptions. I have now obtained multiple actual court documents spanning more than a decade of this case, from the original custody litigation in 2007 through the final agreement in 2019. So instead of repeating rumors, I'm going to walk you through what the records actually show, what was merely alleged, what we still do not know, and how this case ultimately ended. So buckle up, she says. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Before I get into any of it, I need to make one thing very clear, because I keep seeing people attempting to drag Nolan into this custody case. None of this involved Nolan Wells. His case involved Christine Wells and her 3 older children and James E. Briscoe Jr. Nolan was not one of the children involved in this custody proceedings or in these custody proceedings. Nothing I have reviewed establishes that any allegation made in this case involved Nolan or that anything alleged regarding these 3 children ever happened to Nolan. There is plenty contained in these records to investigate without inserting him into a custody case that had nothing to do with him. I have also seen claims that the state of Mississippi has been leaking Christine's court documents. I have found nothing supporting that allegation. The docket being circulated online comes from the Jackson County Chancery Court case inquiry system, and the screenshot itself is marked as public. someone obtaining records from a public court system is not evidence that the state of Mississippi is secretly leaking someone's records. All records I have obtained are public record and subject to open record request. I will say that even though these are public records, I stay ethical in my reporting, and I have redacted all minors' names and private information. Another claim being repeated is that Christine was judicially declared an unfit mother. I have not found an order saying that either. What I have found are some very serious allegations made against Christine by the natural father of these 3 children. There is a huge difference between allegations contained in one parent's court filing and findings made by a judge, and I'm going to make that distinction throughout my article. The original case began in January of 2007, and one detail immediately corrects part of the narrative circulating online. Christine was actually the plaintiff. She initiated the custody action. James E. Briscoe Jr. responded in February of 2007 with an answer, affirmative defenses, and counterclaims seeking custody himself. Briscoe acknowledged that he was the natural father of all 3 children, a daughter born in December of 2004 and twin boys born in April of 2006. The pleadings state that Christine and Briscoe had never married. They also give us some information about the family's living arrangements. According to Briscoe's filing before October 2006, the infant twins had lived with both Christine and James at an apartment in Pascagoula. Their older daughter had been living with her paternal grandmother. By approximately October 2006, according to Briscoe, all 3 children were living with Christine in Moss Point. This is where Briscoe's counterclaim becomes much more concerning. And before anyone takes these quotes and runs with them, I want to be perfectly clear. These are allegations made by James Briscoe in a court filing. I am not representing them as proven facts or judicial findings. Now, let me tell you all something. I want you all to pay attention to how Sarah Fields is reporting this. Now, I don't want you all to think that she's just being nice and sweet. Okay, that she's all of a sudden turned over a new leaf, because she has not. I'm so sure. What she's doing is she's obviously telling it the way that it's supposed to go, for the simple fact that she knows that Christine Wells Wansley is working with Ben Crump. Okay, that's what she knows. And Ben Crump doesn't play the radio, and she knows that too. Okay, and if there's any type of defamation, slander, or libel, I'm sure she knows that there will be consequences and repercussions. So please don't think she's being nice and kind, because she never is. Okay, she never is. And I saw some silly Black folk. That's why I wanted to really see what this is all about. Okay, because I saw some silly Black folks saying, oh, this just goes to prove that you're not biased. At least you're reporting it honestly. Well, she doesn't want to get sued. That's what that is. Okay. So anyway, goes on to say, Briscoe alleged that urgent and necessitous circumstances existed. Okay, he claimed Christine will not allow visitation between the defendant and the minor children herein, but his allegations went well beyond a father complaining he wasn't being allowed to see his children. Briscoe specifically alleged that the plaintiff Christine C. Wells is unstable. He further stated the plaintiff has unstable housing, unstable employment, and an inadequate place for the children to live, among other things that are detrimental to the minor child. He then said, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there, because I think that's enough to let you know. So the lady's saying that she was told that Nolan, or she believes that Nolan didn't even live with his mother for 3 years or whatever. Listen, she's getting that from rumors and speculation or whatever. There is nothing that has been put out there, to my knowledge, that has substantiated whatever she has said about that. I believe that she's getting it conflated with this old case from Mr. Briscoe, who's the father of Mrs. Wansley's 3 older children. Nolan was not even born at the time, and he had nothing to do with that situation. So, people have been throwing dirt during the entirety of this case. There have been some people that have been throwing dirt, and this is just more of that. This is nothing more than a smear campaign. And Sarah Fields is one of those people who spearheads these sort of things as it pertains to Black folk, when they have these high profile cases, and where people are looking with suspicion at someone who looks like her. This is what she does. She did the same thing in the case of Carmelo Anthony. So digging up dirt, when the fact of the matter is, Sarah, someone dug up your dirt too, beloved. They pulled up your whole mugshot, ma'am. So you need to sit down somewhere and take a chill pill and try to worry about your own Karen business and stop worrying about the Wonsleys, okay? If you're not here to help, then please keep your mouth shut. Why don't you try it? Okay, so with that all being said, now let's go to this CNN interview or CNN report where they talk about Nolan Wells' friends to return to the island, okay, to conduct their private investigation. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. And Robin says, great live. I enjoy your content. You sound like a true journalist. Your speech is very fluent. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you, beloved. That was so kind of you to say. I appreciate your kind words. Peace, love, and blessings. Now let's see what they're talking about.
Of anything by police?
No, and that's something that we should make very clear in terms of police have never really given us a clear definition of how or why or how they may be involved moving forward. We believe interviews have been done with all three of them, but they have not been accused of anything right now. In fact, we've never named the three teens because of that. But now that the lawyers have stepped forward and say they're all going to this island, we decided to name them. Warden Hudson, Jack Patalo, and Morgan Seymour all say they're going back out to this island to do their own investigation. Now, Horn Island, of course, is an area that everyone's been focused on after Nolan Wells went missing. You got to think about it. It's been more than a month, Jake. But at the same time, people have so many questions about how this case will move forward. And on top of that, you also have to consider that not only has the sheriff gone silent in this case, but the DA's office has gone silent as they continue this investigation. Let's not forget about that autopsy that we believe is in some sort of process right now. And we're not sure, has it ended? Has toxicology reports come back? But today's focus was going to be on that island. Now, the attorneys put out a statement, but at the same time, as we reached out throughout the day to figure out have they been to the island, no one has responded to CNN just yet. We would love to talk to these three men, but at this point, we're not even sure if they completed that investigation today on that island.
When you run a solar business,
and as I said previously, and I still say that it's very hypocritical for no one to find any issue with them supposedly conducting their own investigation, but there was so much to say. Okay. Anyway, Deron said facts. Keep your trap shut. Okay. Arjamon says, what can they find a month later? I mean, that's what I would like to know. This is just giving, let's say, feigning concern. I mean, I just have questions as to what is their actual motivation for going out there? Okay, what is their point of going out there at this point? Because like I told you all yesterday, if Warren has been going to the island for every year and Nolan has gone there with them before, even last year, according to him, then if you've been going there every year, specifically for the 4th of July, why do you need to now go out there to assess the layout of the land and the dynamics? Like, that makes no sense to me. I would think that is something that he would already have known. Okay, but let's continue. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Because Trent out loud, the same one who went in on TMZ, he was on TMZ last week, I think it was, and went in on them. Okay, and I'm glad, and he rightfully so, because Harvey, sit down somewhere. They seem to be painting a narrative over there, in my opinion. Now, Trent said that immediately after they started talking about defamation and whatnot, people started hitting him up, asking him several questions.
How loud is the YouTuber that's going to get sued for defamation from Bart? We can't stop the entire internet. But I think we believe that we can do enough to convince people that there are some potentially real consequences if you lie and puts people in danger. I've never gotten more DMs, phone calls, and text messages than I did last night. My phone has been flooded with people asking me, Trent, are you the YouTuber that Bart is suing? Are you going to lose your YouTube channel? People sending me sham articles, reels from other content creators saying that Trent Out Loud is the YouTuber that's going to get sued for defamation from Bart. Well, here's the answer to that question. Bart's lawyer did say he's sending out more notices over the next couple of days, but no, I have not gotten a letter of defamation from Bart nor his legal representative. But I will tell you the content creator that did get a defamation letter, and I also will tell you the YouTuber that I think will be getting a defamation letter from Bart's attorney shortly. And when I am done breaking down defamation lawsuits with Bart, Katie, and YouTubers, I am going to give you guys some very important information from Benjamin Crump's press conference yesterday, where he gave us an update.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I don't know why people were thinking it was Trent. Okay, I don't know why people were thinking that Trent was going to be the one that was getting a letter about defamation. Okay, I thought that was interesting. Now, last but not least, likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. So this is a report from today. Attorneys for 3 teens visit Horn Island and vow defamation lawsuits in Nolan Wells case. I'm anxious to see what this all has to say. It looks like there's a video trying to load. Hold on here. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. It's very important, beloveds, that you like. If you enjoy the commentary, please hit the like button. It doesn't cost you a single thing. If you're a trolls, you can also hit the like button because clearly you like something about it, trolls, or you wouldn't be here. Okay? We don't seem to have had many trolls lately, and I'm so glad. I think they're starting to get the message. Okay, I think they're starting to get the message that they don't stop anything and they don't run anything and that no one really cares what they have to say or think. Okay? So let me just go to this video that they have here. I'm not sure what it's about, but we want to see. We're turning over every stone. We're looking behind all curtains. We want answers.
Pineapple? Julie, pineapple? Yeah. No, he's gonna be.
Okay, now here's what they say. That water doesn't look like any water that I would want to be in. It doesn't look like any water that I would want to be in. It looks a bit murky for my taste or for my liking is all I'm saying. Now, here's the thing. So the attorneys representing the 3 teens who celebrated July 4th with Nolan Xavier Wells, the day that he went missing, traveled Friday to Horn Island as part of their ongoing investigation into the case. Now, Mississippi attorney Tyler Cox represents the trio, Warren Hudson, Jax Patello, and Morgan Seymour, along with high-profile defamation and media law attorney Edward Andrew Palczyk. This is the one that used to be Trump's former attorney. Now, listen, here's the thing, though. I want to pay attention because you know what it seems like to me. Now, this is just what I'm wondering. I have questions as to why Jax Patello and Morgan Seymour are all of a sudden inserting themselves. Mel said the water's filthy. It absolutely looks like it, and I wouldn't get in there if you paid me. But I'm just wondering why Jax Patello and Morgan Seymour, now in the 11th hour, are inserting themselves into this story. Because previously, they were not really mentioned, maybe a little bit here and there, but no one was really trying to say they thought they did anything. No one was really calling their names. No one was really saying anything about them. And so when they're talking about defamation and whatnot, no one has really ever blamed those two specifically of anything. It's basically the accusations that people have been spewing have mostly been pertaining to Bart, Warren, and Wyatt. Specifically more so Bart and Warren, okay, and Trayston and Javon as well. But with that being said, they have not really been mentioned. So I'm just curious as to why all of a sudden they feel the need to get an attorney and then go out there to Horn Island when they were not initially part of the commentary by most of the creators. Just curious as to why they, inserted themselves. I don't know. Anyway, it goes on to say, like, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Goes on to say, now that Edward is on board, he needs to lay eyes on the island himself, according to Cox. Not to gather evidence, as there is no evidence to gather on Horn Island, but to understand the layout and dynamics of the land. Well, if there's no evidence, why are they calling it an investigation? That was my whole thing. So Cox said that he and his team have been conducting their own investigation into what happened to Nolan Wells, an 18-year-old Ocean Springs student athlete, since July the 7th, the day after Wells's body was found on the northwest tip of Horn Island. Okay, so they don't think there's any evidence to be found on Horn Island, but they do think that there's evidence to be found. Okay, is that what they're saying here? Because they're saying they're conducting their own investigation and that they have been doing so. They say, we have spoken to witnesses, collected evidence, and turned everything that we have over to the appropriate authorities. Okay, this is what he said, adding that all of which has been verified. Now, the attorney said they plan to pursue defamation lawsuits against people they allege shared libelous and slanderous statements about Hudson, Patalo, and Seymour in connection with Wells's death. I told you all also that I found it interesting that Warren seems to suddenly have separated himself from Bart. Bart went and hired his own legal counsel for his defamation claims or whatever that he was thinking about. But now Warren has done the same, and he's gone and gotten two people that absolutely, as I said, have not really been accused in this, have not really been mentioned in this per se, for the most part. Why have him and Bart had some sort of falling out? Is there something going on between the two of them? I have questions. I'm just curious as to, are they still even friends? What is this all looking like? Where is this all leading us to? So anyway, goes on to say, in a joint statement, the attorney said they are proud to stand with and fight for the three teens who have denied any wrongdoing in connection with Wells's death. He says, starting today, those who wish to continue trafficking in lies about these good Ocean Springs young men will be held accountable to the maximum extent of the law. We, on the other hand, will be focused solely on the truth, which is that those innocent young men had nothing whatsoever to do with the tragic death of Nolan Wells. Well, I would think that would be for a court to decide. Now, as part of their work, or a grand jury, more specifically. Now, as part of their work, the attorney said they are combing through all of the disgraceful mainstream media coverage and social media driven thus far. He says, I guarantee you, we will find every single defamatory remark made about Warren, Jax, and Morgan. We will then hold the offenders accountable, big or small, national or local, libel or slander. And so I find that all interesting. And then goes on to say further that Tyler and I have been working tirelessly to identify the specific offenders who have, as a matter of law, defamed Warren, Jax, and Morgan. Now, I can tell you that we have identified two individuals. I can only tell you that they are two individuals who will be very recognizable. I can tell you at this point, we're talking about individuals rather than entities. Okay, so when he's saying individuals rather than entities, that would mean that he's not talking about specific media organizations. Okay, because that would be considered an entity, in my opinion. Now, Posick said that he couldn't immediately identify the individuals for security reasons, legal reasons, or a lot of reasons, but said the list will continue to grow. The attorneys plan to start drafting the lawsuits damn near immediately, he said. Yeah, because he's trying to get paid. And I wonder why nobody's going in on him. The same people that were going in on Ben Crump. I'm just saying, I wonder why no one's calling him an ambulance chaser. I have several questions. I would like to know why the same people who were dragging Ben Crump, calling him a pimp and a hustler, a race hustler at that, such as tap dancing, tiptoeing through the tulips, rage Batum Tatum, why he doesn't have a problem with this. And I'm not saying that anyone should, but I just have questions as to why it's so different for the white attorney than it was rather for Ben Crump. Now, in the day before social media was a thing, I would say when there was a defamatory statement, it would spread like a fire, right? Like a good old fire. With the advent of social media, the landscape changed. Nowadays, it's spreading like a fire with an accelerant. It's like pouring accelerant all over the crime scene and then lighting it on fire. It's so fast. It's like a very, very fast moving house fire, or one of those that, wildfires, when the forest is like dry timber. It can just rage on real fast, he says. Well, no denying that. That's absolutely true. I mean, in the age of social media, right, things do absolutely spread a whole lot quicker than in previous times. But that's just the way it is. It's called the changing of the times. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Now, I think that you just may, beloveds, find this part interesting. What I'm about to show you is called I'm going to show you, it's called an horary chart. Now, if you don't know what an horary chart is, you're going to find out, okay? Because this lady, I believe she's a Vedic astrologer, and that's something that I'm studying currently under the mentorship of a expert Vedic astrologer who is very good and very well known. But now all I'm saying is I'm not qualified to do this as of yet, but soon I will be. But yes, she's using a horary chart, so I'm going to pull this up, and I want you all to hear what she had to say about the Nolan Wells case. And now, mind you, this is her own commentary, okay? And I'm not taking ownership or saying that my views and opinions, this does not reflect the views and opinions of this channel or any of my affiliate channels. Okay, please pay attention. Let's get into it.
I pulled a horary chart to ask, was Nolan Wells murdered? I pulled this chart on July 24th, 2026, and I haven't had a chance to make this video until today. Today is August 7th, 2026. Normally, if I have a person's time of birth, I can look at their D30 chart in Vedic astrology to determine how they were fated to die. But since we don't have Nolan Wells' time of birth, I instead pulled a horary chart, which can be used to answer questions. So for example, if you think of a question, you can quickly glance at the clock and record the date, time, and the location you were in when you thought of that question. And you can later pull a natal chart using that information. My approach to reading this particular horary chart is experimental. I'm basically reading it as if it's a D30 chart. And for those that don't know, the D30 Trimsamsa chart in Vedic astrology can be used to basically reveal the miseries and misfortunes that a person will experience throughout their life, but it can also be used to determine how a person was fated to die. So when I'm looking at a D30 chart, I want to first find the Badak planet, because that can be used to narrow down the manner of death. And in this chart, since the ascendant is in Gemini, which is considered a dual sign in Vedic astrology, which is also called a mutable sign in tropical astrology, the Badak planet is automatically the seventh house lord, Jupiter. So when the Badak planet is the seventh house lord, this indicates that other people would be the cause for a person's death. The seventh house lord, Jupiter, is exalted in the second house in Cancer. That's very interesting because the second house traditionally rules the throat and the neck. And the fact that the Badak planet that represents other people is exalted in Cancer, that to me says that whoever murdered Nolan is well protected. The dispositor of the Badak planet is the moon, since Jupiter is in Cancer, and the moon is in Scorpio in the sixth house. The sixth house rules your enemies, obstacles, challenges, physical illness. The fact that it's also in Scorpio, that adds another dimension of obsession, jealousy, fixation. In a horary chart, applying aspects between planets indicate events that will happen in the future, and separating aspects between planets indicate events that have happened prior to the question being asked. So the fact that in this chart, the sun is in an applying conjunction to Jupiter, which is the bad hack planet representing other people who I believe are responsible for Nolan's death, I do believe that they will be exposed and the truth will be brought to light eventually. And the 10th house in a horary chart represents the outcome. Neptune is retrograde in the 10th house. But when Neptune is retrograde, that indicates that the veil has been dropped and we can see with a little more clarity. Now, the fact that Saturn is in the 10th house, I believe indicates that it's going to take a long time before this truth is revealed and that justice is served, because that's just the nature of Saturn. But because Neptune is retrograde, that gives me hope. Also, especially because the dispositor of the bad hack planet, Jupiter, which is Moon in the 6th house in Scorpio, is in an applying trine to the 10th house lord, Neptune, which is retrograde. This tells me that eventually the illusion will be dropped and people will see, especially with Sun applying conjunction to Jupiter. I pulled a horary chart to ask, was Nolan Wells murdered? I pulled
Okay, so did you all hear that? What she claims to have seen in the charts? So she's basically saying that whomever is well protected and that the truth will eventually come out, but basically won't be anytime soon. I'm going to tell you like this. I'm just going to venture to guess. Excuse me. Hold on. Nirvana says, how did Nolan even get to the meetup spot where the boats took off that morning, since his BFF Warren said he left him to go get McDonald's and drop off a boat without him? You know, beloved, that's a good question. I had assumed, mind you, because Warren didn't specify, he did say that he went to McDonald's and that Nolan was not with him. He said they went for breakfast at McDonald's. And then he further said later on that they went to get ice, he and Wyatt. And again, he didn't mention Nolan. So that is a very good question, because you know what? I didn't ask that question because I didn't think about it like that. See, you viewed it from a different lens than I did, because I naturally assumed that when Warren claims he went to get McDonald's, that he went and got the food and then came back to the house, to Wyatt's house. And then I felt that when they left to go get the ice, that they simply went and got the ice and then came back again to the house and then left from there. Now, that's just what I assumed, but he never specified that. So good job, Nirvana, because that is a very intricate detail, okay? Because we don't know, just judging based of how Warren expressed that, whether he and Wyatt went to breakfast, went to get the ice, and then went on about their business. Okay, so that's a good question. But like I said, I felt that if Nolan spent the night with Wyatt as well, and they all went there together, that they obviously had come back to get Nolan. But, you know, at this point, we have more questions than answers. So that very well could have been the case. What you're asking or suggesting, I haven't a clue, honey. But what I do know is that stories are not matching. Details don't seem to add up. And quite frankly, it causes me to have more than one question. In fact, I have several. Because like I said, even when Trayston and Warren interviewed with Rage Batum, Tap Dancing Tatum, you know, Trayston, in my opinion, said things that contradicted other things that had already been said as well. Okay? I just feel like, and like Elliot Connie said, was it Elliot Connie who said that he was being deceptive, said that Warren was being deceptive, and not saying that he was lying per se, but that he was being deceptive? Someone said that. I believe it was Connie. I don't want to give him the credit or, you know, say that he said it if he did, not give him credit, but I don't want to say that he said it if he didn't, but I believe that's where I got that from. So the bottom line is, I just don't think that Warren was telling the truth. Warren, in my opinion, was telling a bunch of mistruths, specifically when he said that he told Mrs. Christine Wansley that he or they had Nolan's phone. I don't believe that because Mrs. Wensley never said that. She said that she had to trace and track his phone. Now, there would be no need for her to do that if Warren had already informed her that he, in fact, had the phone. And you see, that's the thing, because if this were to go to trial, if there were to be a trial, the grand jury was to indict anyone, that is something that could cause reasonable doubt because the jurors wouldn't know who to believe. Do they believe the grieving mother or do they believe the so-called friend? Okay, that right there is something that would absolutely be grounds for reasonable doubt, as with many other details that have now come out. Okay, and this may be all by design. You know, someone could be trying to cause reasonable doubt. Well, with that all being said, listen, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. Like I said, we still have more questions than answers, and so I will be back later. So everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Okay, and I'm going to be on the spiritual channel tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going to be on the spiritual channel tomorrow. So if you all don't follow the spiritual channel, then please do if you want to get spiritual vitamins, because that's what we'll be doing. And with that being said, each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, and never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. And until next time, I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.
Nowhere. Justice for no. We not going nowhere. Justice for Nolan Wells. They called them bad parents. Said they can't even grieve. Disrespected, called evil by the real evil people. Labeled them out the blue. Elmo stood up and said we was not raised like that. We did not raise our kids like that. We simply want the truth. We not going nowhere. Justice for no. Justice for Nolan Wells. Yeah. Christine got that hate mail right to the house. They sent it. The face family photo, dollar signs all over it, implying greed, implying money. Bold enough to mail that trash, but not bold enough for a return address. She said, "Go touch some grass." Threatening messages, character attacks, online harassment. Every time they ask what happened to their son, people try to distract, but Christine said it plain: we will not be distracted. We gon' keep pushing. We not going nowhere. Justice for no. For Nolan Wells. We the people still here. Ain't going nowhere. Justice for Nolan Wells. That's it. That's all.